Hey traders, Francisco here with Valareso Capital. On today's video, we're gonna cover a tool that I have been using recently in my trading, and it has improved my results massively. So I wanna cover this tool in today's video, and basically this tool is gonna help you understand what is the structure of the market in terms of the options positioning, and how that actually has a huge effect on how the equity that you're trading reacts to certain levels. So basically this tool is gonna help you understand what is the gamma exposure and how to find really high probability levels of support and resistance, and how to find really high probability targets for your trades. So if you're interested in learning more about this tool, make sure to stick all the way to the end in this video. So right now, guys, let's start here with the tool. The tool that I'm gonna do this presentation on today is gonna be the tool from GammaEdge. I don't have any affiliation with them. I'm basically just making this video for the community because I'm gonna start using this tool a lot, and I'm gonna start taking a lot of trades using this tool. So I want everyone to understand the tool. That way you can also understand the trades that I'm taking on the trade reviews that I do here in the channel, or also how do I look at the market when I do the weekly watch list and when I do the market updates on a weekly basis. So we're gonna start here with the video. This information that I'm going to be presenting today, everything that I have learned comes directly from GammaEdge. So that's going to be my primary source. And at the end of the presentation, you're going to have the links from the tweets that I actually got the information from GammaEdge. So let's start here with how do I actually use this tool for my swing trading. And we're going to go and we're going to cover the tool, and then we're going to look at some really recent examples of some trades that I actually made on AMD and one that I made in Meta. So let's start here with the presentation. So what are the two important levels that I actually use from this tool for my swing trade? And the two levels that we're gonna cover today is gonna be the positive and negative transition zone. And then the second levels are going to be the positive and negative gamma exposures that we have, which are basically going to be the positive gex and the negative gex that are represented in this tool. So let's start here. So here's an image that I got directly from the guys at GammaEdge. They put a tweet, a really amazing tweet, explaining how the app, their web app, actually makes it super easy and super accessible for new traders to understand this information. So we're gonna cover basically the two levels that we're gonna cover is basically we're gonna cover this transition zone, which is gonna be this white box that we have right here. You can see right here the white box, and then we're gonna talk about the positive gex, which is the gamma exposure that we have, the positive gamma exposure that we tend to have that acts as a really strong level of resistance. And then we're going to talk about these negative gex. So let's jump here into the presentation really quickly. That way we don't make this a really long video. So let's start here with the positive and negative transition zone. And let me make myself smaller so that way you can actually read everything that is here in the presentation. So let's start here with the positive transition. So basically the positive transition is the strike, and you can read it here in the presentation, is the strike at which in which we include that strike, and all the strikes that are above that level are going to be gamma exposure positive. The gamma exposure is going to be positive above these levels. So when we are above this positive transition zone, then we are in a gamma positive zone and basically a gamma positive environment. So that's actually pretty bullish. So how can you actually use this zone? So first of all, this level, when you are right above that transition zone, you can actually use that level as an entry point. So it's going to be kind of like a breakout. As soon as you get above that level, then you can consider that, okay, we're entering into this gamma positive exposure zone. So you can actually use that as an entry point. And of course, you can also use that level as a level in which you will consider that if price continues to trade above it, then you can keep a bullish bias and you can keep looking for higher prices in the equity that you're trading. And of course, if you are below this level, and you're coming from this level from you're basically below this level and you're testing this level from below, it can all of course act as resistance. And then of course, if you combine these levels, which is where we're going to take a look at the examples that I'm going to show you, if you combine these levels with some patterns in the daily chart, you can actually get some really high probability moves. So once again, here's the image. That way we can all be in the same page. We were talking about the positive transition zone, which is going to be this line right here. So when you are above this line, then you can consider this line as the support, or you can consider this line as the entry for a breakout. So that's going to be the positive transition zone. So now let's jump into the negative transition zone, which is going to be basically the bottom level of the white box of that transition box. And basically this just means that from that level and below that level, the gamma exposure is going to be negative. So basically you're going to be in negative exposure territory, and it's very similar to the positive transition. Basically you can use that level as an entry for those bearish positions or if you're coming from the upside and then you're testing that level, then perhaps that level is going to be a line in the sun and then it's going to act as support. So if we go back to that image, you're going to see here that the negative transition zone is going to be this line right here, right? So the positive transition zone is going to be above the line, right above that upper line, and the negative transition zone is going to be below the line in the bottom. So basically, just to review, if you're coming from above, then that bottom transition zone could act as support and then move higher. Or if we break it, then you can use that as an entry, kind of a breakdown entry, and look for lower targets. So I expect that everything is clear. It's actually super easy. So now let's continue here, and now let's talk about the GEX, which is going to be the positive and negative gamma levels that we have in the structure of the options. So when we're talking about the positive GEX, which is going to be positive GEX, this is going to be the strike with the highest positive level of gamma exposure. So you're looking for the highest positive level of that gamma, and that tends to act as a very strong level of resistance. What is really interesting is that when you are above that transition zone, that level tends to act as a magnet for price, which is actually pretty interesting. So of course, if we happen to go to that level, expect some selling pressure, right, as speculators start to take some profits from it. And it's also interesting that if price actually gets above that level, we tend to have really strong moves to the upside, or you can actually call it a squeeze, which is super interesting, right? It's super interesting. That tends to happen a lot. And usually what happens is that if we get above that positive GEX, it can also act as a level of support if we happen to retest it. And of course, in a very bullish market, that positive GEX, that wall, that gamma wall is going to continue to rise. So you're going to continue to see that level rise, and you're going to start getting new levels of resistance above the price that you're currently trading. So that's actually super interesting to understand. And of course, if we go back to the image here, that way you can see it more clearly. Here's going to be the positive GEX. Remember that we were talking that this was the highest level of positive gamma exposure. So for example, if you're trading above this 4,760 level, then you expect for price, if you break above this level, perhaps retest it, and then the first target is going to be that positive GEX above it. And if we happen to move above that GEX, then perhaps we're going to have a squeeze, and then perhaps this is going to act as support, and then we're going to move into the next level, which is going to be the next highest level of of positive gamma exposure, and those levels continue to stack to the upside, which is actually pretty interesting. And then after hearing that, I suppose that you understand kind of what is going to be the negative GEX, which is going to be the same thing but to the downside. And basically, this is going to be the strike with the highest negative level of gamma exposure in the market. And of course, this is going to act as a magnet. If we actually break below that transition zone, then that's going to be your downside target. And of course, you can see some buying pressure at those levels. A lot of people is going to take profits at those levels if they have short positions, because it's a largely liquid strike. And what is also interesting is that if you get below that level, you can actually get a really strong move to the downside. And of course, if you're below it, then expect this level to act as a possible level of resistance, which is actually pretty interesting. And if we go back to the box here, this is going to be your negative GEX, right? You can see right here that is the highest level with negative gamma exposure. And of course, you can see right here, if we happen to drop below this negative transition zone, then expect this transition zone to act as resistance, and then perhaps we're gonna come and test this negative GEX, and if we continue to break below it, then perhaps that's gonna be resistance, and then you understand the picture is gonna be kind of a ladder to the downside. Another thing that is important, they also talk about this COI, which is basically the highest open interest of an option. I don't tend to see that much when I'm swing trading. I usually when I'm swing trading, I just focus on where is the transition box. Are we above it? Bullish? Are we below it? Bearish? If we are inside the box, then perhaps we're gonna see a little bit of chop. But if we are above the white transition zone, then I'm expecting a move to positive GEX. If I'm below the white transition zone, then I'm expecting a move to negative GEX. So it's actually pretty simple to understand, guys. Pretty simple. And it's actually a pretty impressive and amazing tool. You can see right here, here are the sources. This is a thread from GammaEdge. They explain everything in more detail, so you can actually see what they posted. And of course, if you want to follow them, you can see right here. Here is the link for their Twitter account. So now that we understand that, let's jump into some recent examples that I made. We're going to cover a trade that I made in AMD, and we're going to cover a trade that I made in Meta. So let's jump there right now. So let's start here. Let's start here with the trade that I made in AMD. And first of all, here's the chart of AMD. And what is actually really interesting is that I was looking at AMD on this day right here. It was the 27th. So this day I was looking at AMD, and just to put a little bit of context here into my chart, this gray box is going to be the transition zone. And we're going to take a look at the actual screenshots that I took. That way you can understand what I was looking on the app, and then how I was interpreting that information here in the charts on real time. So this is going to be the transition box, right? It's going to be right here. It's going to be your transition box. Then this 170 level is going to be your negative GEX. And then this 180 level is going to be your positive GEX. So that's going to be kind of the highest gamma exposure that we had. And now let's jump into what actually was the setup here when you were looking at the web app from GammaEdge. So right here you can see right here that the transition zone was, this is AMD, right? And you can see right here that the date was on the 27th when I opened my position. You can see right here that the transition box was 177.50 to 175. You can see right here that price was right at 177.50, and I was looking for a move above it. And you can see right here that the positive GEX was at 180. So that was resistance. You can see right here that we had a really strong gamma exposure at that level, positive gamma exposure at that level. But as soon as AMD closed above it, then we had a really strong move to the upside. And for you to actually watch the levels that I bought, you can see right here, here is the trade that I made in AMD. I bought it at 178, then I sold it at 188. I bought it on the 27th. So let's jump back into the chart. That way you can actually see right here. So I also made some annotations here in the chart. So I bought it as soon as the price closed above that transition zone. I opened my position with the expectation that now that we are in a positive gamma zone, I was expecting a really quick move to the upside. The next day, what happened is that we actually moved below that level. However, we were holding above that negative transition zone, so I was expecting some chop, but as long as price continued to hold above this level, I was expecting a resolution to the upside. And then of course I was looking at the moving averages, right? The moving averages were rising. That's another reason of why I took the trade, but right now we're just covering what I actually see in the GammaEdge app. So as soon as we got that close, I opened my position. Remember that 180 was that really high level of gamma exposure, and of course AMD opened above that the next day, and we had a really strong move to the upside. I opened my position here, took my profits at 188.68. That was somewhere around a 6% trade, and the way that I was looking for my target, I was using Fibonacci, but that's for another day. This was actually a really easy trade, and the cool thing about about these levels in the GammaEdge app is that they give you a lot of confidence when you're actually taking these trades, because you understand that there is actual options support and gamma structure that is supporting the price. So that's actually really interesting. And let me jump into the next example. That way we can end this video and don't make it super crazy long. The next example is going to be Meta, and let's take a look here first. Same way we did it with AMD. This box is going to be the transition zone, and then gamma was at 500. That's going to be the positive gex, and then the negative gex is down here at 460. And then of course, as soon as Meta had this pullback all the way to 480, you can see right here that we found buyers right here, that transition zone. Remember that if we're coming from above and then testing that transition zone, that tend to act as support. Support was confirmed here. I was waiting for that confirmation near the end of day, bought my position at 486.26, and then my target was that positive gamma exposure somewhere around 500. I took my profits a little bit before that, 498.74. And let's take a look at what Meta actually looked at the day that I actually took the trade. You can see right here that I opened the position on the 27 as well. And you can see right here that Meta was trading above the transition zone. So we were trading above 480. And then you can see right here that the positive gex was at 500, and I was looking for this to act as support, and then I was looking for a test of that 500. Pretty easy trade. I was really confident, and that way you can actually build some really nice exposure. You can see right here my trade in Meta. I opened it on the 27, 486, and sold it near that 500 level. If we jump back to the chart really quickly, you're gonna see the executions. Right here, I bought it and then I sold it here. Pretty easy trade. And the most amazing thing is that you can actually build a lot of confidence using this tool. And I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And I'm using it more and more frequently for my trading. I have made some really nice trades using it. And I think it provides a really nice edge. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope that you find this information super useful. Remember that if you find any value on these videos, remember to subscribe to the channel. That way the channel can grow and we can actually reach a bigger audience and help more traders that are looking for this type of information. So thank you so much for your time, and I will see you on future videos. Take care and bye bye.